Hi everyone, it's Adrian and I have Laura Louise here. So Laura Louise, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for being here. And I'm just going to riff off the list. I had to remind Laura what she wrote as her bio, but I'll read it out. We've got a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a friend, a co-worker, a volunteer, a singer, a dancer, free spirit, author, speaker, life coach, mentor, cook, traveler, counselor, goddess, peaceful warrior, teacher, student, juggler, healer, and a human being. Now, I guess out of all of those ones, the one I wanted to touch upon is juggler.
You should have told me that in advance. I would have had something to juggle.
How good a juggler are you?
Not bad. I mean, three um, tennis balls the same size I can handle. And
Three
I
tennis.
juggle a lot. I mean, even metaphorically in my life, so that's
Sure,
included too.
sure.
But I can't juggle the bowling pins. That takes a little bit more practice.
I was going to ask you if you're up to juggling knives and things like that, but
You should have told me in advance. I would have pulled out the swords.
and just for the people back home, the reason I wanted to interview you is about the Good Deeds Project, which we'll come to in a sec, but just so people know, how would you sort of, in a nutshell, describe to people the Good Deeds Project?
In a nutshell, the Good Deeds Project is a journey from the East Coast to the West Coast doing good deeds and featuring other people who do good deeds and making it into a documentary. It was birthed as a suicide prevention program in order to bring awareness to kindness and recognize that small gestures really make a massive difference in our life. So, holding the door behind you for the next person, or helping someone pick something up that they've dropped, or just simply
Sure.
recognizing someone as a human being and making eye contact and smiling.
Yeah,
You never know where people are at in their mind
yeah,
or in their life. So when you offer those kinds of gestures, it makes a massive difference.
sure. Now, I just wanted to mention, I've also read your book, and it was a great read. I just wanted to touch on, at one stage you mentioned in 1 year of your life, if I'm recalling correctly, there were 9 months, and in each month you were at a funeral. And for anyone, let alone someone at that age, that's a lot of death to be surrounded by. How? I mean, because you talked about suicide prevention. How did that sort of that horrible experience lead you to where you are today?
Um, yeah, that was a tough year, and I didn't recognize that it was going to be the beginning of that kind of journey. I mean, I lost people from coworkers, friends, family,
Mm,
um, you know, neighbors, and yeah, it was tough. Every month, I got to know the staff at the
yeah,
funeral home. Like they were good friends, and now I see them all the time, and it's like I'm glad I haven't seen you in a while.
yeah. Nothing
Uh,
personal, but I'd like to not see you for a while.
yeah, and then the following year after that, we experienced a lot of youth suicides in our community. Um, so it almost was an opportunity to learn how to cope and be in those situations and develop that strength and also just be comfortable in those feelings that come up
Mm,
and be able to be in that space and not run away from it or avoid it or pretend that it's not there.
yeah,
Um, I would say that would be the biggest part of how it's been, not just that part of the journey, but
sure.
overall now it's with everything.
Is that how, would you say that's how your journey started? Because I know you do a lot of you do a lot of life coaching, you do healing. Would you say that was basically how you got interested in that path was actually from that experience?
No, I think that experience added to it. I think
Right.
the piece that sparked the journey, and I always try to reflect on where did this journey actually begin. I
Yeah.
really think it was, it's always been there. But a big part was through traveling and learning about different cultures and different healing modalities and different ways people facilitate healing or personal development and growth.
Yeah.
And it was also a big part of my own personal development and growth was through traveling and the self-reflection and mindfulness and meditation that came through that.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I teach in workshops or write about in the book isn't stuff that I read
Mm.
or got from somewhere else. It's stuff because I've experienced it and found that it's helpful or works, so I share it as much as I can.
Yeah. Did you always have the traveling bug? I mean, was that something that you forced yourself to do? Because some people love traveling. You mentioned in your book that the way you get yourself through the fear is basically to just go and do it anyway. You mentioned one experience where you were afraid of, I think, was it water? And then you made yourself go rafting on the Nile and
Yep, that's true.
almost drowned.
Yeah, that's
So,
story.
how did the whole traveling thing start for you?
My first trip was in my second year of university, and I would have been 19 or 20 years
Hmm.
old. And I went to Italy for the first time with a few friends and taught English there for a summer. And that experience was like, oh yes, I love this.
Yeah,
I traveled a lot before, like, but it was always with family, and
yeah,
and I always enjoyed that. It was just a different experience to go on your own into a space of unknown, and that was, I think, the piece that got me hooked. That fear, that fear energy of going into a space that you don't know what's to come, but
yeah,
also in that fear energy is that excitement energy. They run through the body in the same way, and tapping into it as more of an exciting thing,
yeah.
and a thrill and adventure, I think, is the piece that makes traveling so beautiful.
Sure. So your first experience was to Italy. And then after that, I mean, would you be able to name all the different countries that you've been to? Because you've been to a lot.
Um, sure. There's Italy, England, France. I lived in Australia for a year, which I
Yeah.
loved. Went to Thailand, Hong Kong, and then in the Africa trip, went to Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, Namibia, Spain, and Morocco, and Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, the USA, Canada. Yeah, so you're asking before. I think the place I missed is India, so that's definitely next on my list.
I'm just
Is a trip.
imagining your passport must be quite worn out after all
It
that.
is, and I get questioned all the time at customs. It's thinking today I need to order a new passport, so I stop getting questioned so much.
Why are they questioning you? Are they wondering why you've been to every country in the world, basically?
Yeah, they wonder, what the motives are behind that. And it's
Yeah,
every time I cross from Canada into the U.S. is very particular and
yeah,
wants to make their country safe, so they
sure,
ask all those questions.
sure. Really worn that passport out. And how did the Good Deeds Movement project start? Because I know I saw one of your videos where you had a day job and you quit your day job. Is that when you decided to start the Good Deeds Movement, or was it kind of in your mind at the beginning, like a little bit before, and then it just sort of happened by accident? Like, how did it start? Because it's obviously a huge part of your life now.
It is. It started with an idea to move out west. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to go out west, then I'm going to do something cool. And I'm like, you know what? I'll do good deeds.
Yeah,
And this idea to do good deeds just kept building and building. But that was in November of last year. And 3 months later, I looked into an old journal. And in that old journal, it said, go across the country and do good deeds.
wow.
So I'm like, I don't know when it started. It's almost like I'm walking into my own destiny. And
Yeah.
even planning the trips and the project, I plan something, but then it just takes a total shift in another direction.
Hmm.
And the ability to go with the flow and ride those waves has been the magic of the whole project, because some things that are planned end up turning even better than I could have imagined.
Yeah. Have you started the actual trip now, going from the east to the west, or is there a date on that when you're starting?
Yeah, so in June, I did the east coast of Canada and traveled in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Point Edward Island, and then back through Ontario. And then I just came back from an East Coast trip of the USA. So I was in
Right.
Boston, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and then made my way back home. So at this point, it's done in pieces.
Yeah.
And I think the ideal will be to have, an actual mobile temple to travel in
Yeah.
and explore in that way. But it's kind of neat to do it in these chapters and watch um, how things come together.
Sure. And you're filming a documentary as you travel, aren't you?
Yes.
How
So I
how is that coming together?
amazing. I've been interviewing some of the most remarkable people doing remarkable things. I mean, anything from, um, this one girl that I met on the east coast of Canada, there was this plot beside a hospital, and they were going to build a parking lot. And instead of doing the parking lot, she had made a proposal to make it into a community garden. And the hospital overlooked this proposal and decided to go with it. So now it's
Wow.
this huge community garden, and it brings people obviously in the neighborhood together,
Mm.
but it also is a place where restaurants grow their own food for the restaurants. And then there's plots also for different shelters in the community, and they
Hmm.
have food for the shelters. So it's become
Wow.
this incredible movement within their community. And it's great because a lot of times people look negatively on the medical system or the hospitals
Yeah.
or these sorts of things, but it was actually the hospital that agreed to it.
Yeah.
Um, and there was something similar too in New York City and Brooklyn. This developing company had bought out these huge plots, and they weren't going to work on one plot for 2 years. So they offered it to the community to make proposals as to what to do with it. So for 2 years, they made it into this dirt bike park for kids, and they had
Wow.
another community garden, and then they also had a teepee where they did workshops and
A
classes and had
teepee.
different
Wow.
speakers. Yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of the theme of the documentary portion of it is these people have ideas, and they pursue the idea. And there might be
Mm.
a long list of obstacles,
Yeah.
but once they get over the obstacles, it turns out to be this incredible thing that's serving people in such great ways.
Mm.
And just because it all started with an idea. And I think that's the power of, of the good deeds is that when you show up and you
Mm.
offer that good intention, the ripples of it, I mean, they just continue to a place that you don't get to see anymore.
Yeah.
They're just go and go and go. And I think that's become the theme of the filming of the documentary.
Do you find that, I guess, from your experience with shooting the documentary, but also in life in general, that sometimes people look upon like random acts of kindness with suspicion at all? Do they ever expect? It's almost sometimes I feel that people expect people to be nasty to one another, and sometimes when you walk up to someone and smile and just for no reason you do something good for them, they look at you as either you're trying to get something from them or you're completely, crazy. Have you found that to be true at all?
100%. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fascinating. Especially I've done a lot of booths at festivals,
Hmm.
and a lot of times when we do a festival, we do good deeds. So one time I had we were giving out flowers. So I went up to these two older ladies and I went to give them a flower, and I think they were expecting that I was going to ask them for something or for
Yeah.
money or donation. And I was like, no, like I just want to give you this flower. And one lady completely ignored me, and the second lady was like, well, no, I don't like flowers. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, and I was like, it's funny that you say that because I actually don't like flowers either because the smell of them reminds me of the funeral home,
Oh
which is
no.
so come full circle here.
Right.
And she goes, and then she totally softened after that. She goes, yeah, that's why I don't like it. I think we had carnations. She's like, it's carnations that I don't like because of the same reason.
Oh
And
wow.
then I was like, yeah, I get it. I go, but these friends of ours had donated these flowers for us to give away as good deeds. We're attempting to build awareness around kindness to
Hmm.
support, suicide prevention. And I just, said exactly what I shared with you earlier.
Yeah.
And she just looked at me and she's like, give me the damn flower. And she
Give me the
took
damn
it.
flower. You guilted her into accepting a free flower.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Give it away. You'll enjoy the good deed.
Yeah.
So I think people have been approached so much that they've created a wall,
Yeah.
and as long as you come from a place of compassion with that wall instead of try to knock it down,
Yeah.
I think it goes down on its own. Um, I had breakfast with this one guy on the east coast of Canada, and he said to me, I appreciate that you're doing good and you want to see good. He goes, but from my own personal experience, I just haven't seen enough good in the world to
Hmm.
believe what you're doing to be true. He's like, I worry for you actually that you're traveling by yourself and you're doing these good deeds. You seem really naive as to what the world's really about. And It was an interesting conversation because I've seen a lot of the world
Yeah,
and I've seen a lot of the bad and the
yeah,
good and everything in between. So um, I still choose to see the good.
yeah.
And it's a choice and it's a perspective. And yes, we have a variety of different experiences and um, things that we have seen or heard
Mm,
or felt in the past, but we can choose what we want to focus on now, rather than carry all of that. And, once he shared his past with me, it's completely understandable
yeah,
why he had that perspective. And later that day, he ended up helping me out with something, and his words were, "You know what? I'm not supposed to care about these things." So in the end, he he showed up too,
yeah,
and helped out in a way that he wasn't expecting. But I mean, I wasn't expecting it either. But it was a choice,
yeah.
and I think when you choose to see the good, you're going to find it, and that's the whole purpose of the Good Deeds Project. Is a lot of times we're so bombarded by the bad news
Yeah.
in the world that we think the world is this terrible place, but it's not. People are doing amazing things all the time. It's just
Mm,
not featured in our media. It's not featured in our everyday.
yeah,
But if you want to find it, you will, and that's the whole purpose of bringing awareness and light to the good news, because
yeah.
good news travels fast.
I mean, you mentioned that it's a choice to see the good in people because obviously, having seen as much of the world as you have and having had some of the experiences you have, I don't think you could possibly be called naive. But a lot of people do think that seeing the positive in people is being a bit naive. I mean, did you find yourself consciously making a choice at one point, and did you find that easy, or is it something that's continually tested?
Oh, it's a choice that happens every moment, every day.
Mm,
It's not a one-time thing. It's something that you choose to show up for every time you choose to show up. Every situation you get to choose how you want to respond to it versus react or get
mm,
triggered. So I don't think it's just a one day I had a meditation and thought I'm going to look for the good.
yeah,
It's constant. It's a constant, um, especially when in terms of neural pathways in the brain. If all your life you've always looked at the negative, always looked at the bad, and now you want to shift over, it takes time. It's
yeah,
like creating a new highway in
yeah,
the brain. It's a dirt path at first. Then you put down some gravel, then
yeah,
you make it into some clay, and then cement, and then eventually it becomes a road, and eventually a highway, and that's just your go-to place.
yeah,
Uh, but I think compassion and understanding and patience with yourself in those changes. And if you do get triggered and you start to, think negative again, to not, start beating yourself up for it, because then
yeah.
that's just counterproductive too. But just be like, oh, and notice, and then switch again and make the choice again.
Through your journeys so far, have you found any aspect of humanity or yourself to be surprising?
I am every day surprised by how good and amazing people decide to show up and offer these gestures that are over and above
Mm,
kindness. It's not even kind anymore. It's like off the charts generosity,
yeah,
and that's what surprises me. When I think things are good, they can be even better.
yeah,
And as far as looking to the negative and thinking negative, um, to have compassion in that, because we're programmed to think like that.
yeah,
We are, from when we're little, we're programmed to think that we're not enough, that we need a certain product to look pretty, that we need a certain color to look skinny, or we need a certain, shampoo to have great hair, or a
yeah,
certain skin color to look, smooth and young. Like it's constant.
yeah,
It's constant. And even our education system, we're programmed in a way that we have to do better,
yeah,
that certain things are not enough. So now we come from a space where we're not enough. So when we look out to the outside world, we're a huge critic, and nobody else is good enough either.
mm,
And and you start to see all the negative and everything else, because we can't even see the positive within ourselves. We don't even come from a space where we feel like we're good enough.
yeah,
So I think it always starts with the self. And if you could come to that place of peace within you, and you could come to that place of um, I want to say, like, the confidence and
mm,
joy and love, self-love that we can cultivate,
yeah,
um, then it's easier to show up like that for a
sure,
relationship and in our own homes, and then eventually in our workplaces, our communities,
sure,
and to think that we don't make a difference in the world. We make a difference with how we choose up within our internal world
Mm.
and the world within, our hula hoop that surrounds us.
How would you, because I work with a lot of teenage girls, and girls tend to be marketed more towards and made to feel especially, worthless. So you have to buy a product, as you said. How would you, if there's a young girl watching and she doesn't have much self-confidence, how would you suggest she starts that journey?
I have two suggestions. One, and this is for anybody really,
Sure.
is starting the practice of gratitude. Having gratitude is really starting to notice the good things about yourself and about your life, and not just being like, oh yeah, I'm thankful for, um, I don't know, thankful for my home, but like really think, why am I thankful for my home?
Mm.
So name it, and then uh, share with yourself, and even in writing,
Yeah.
what's the why. Like, I'm thankful for water because, I mean, I live in a place where I have clean water and I have fresh water and I can shower with that water, and
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Or I'm thankful for my hands because my hands are the things that create every day,
Yeah.
or my hands are the things that get to hug people.
Yeah.
So when I just say I'm thankful for my hands, you're noticing it. But when you think of the why,
Mm.
it generates the feeling. And when you have that feeling run through your brain and through your body, it generates that energy, and it feeds you. It feeds your entire cellular system.
Yeah.
It takes it to another level. So practicing gratitude
Yeah.
and starting to notice the good. The other thing I would say is specific to teenagers and girls is play. Like, be silly. Like the feminine energy, and with men and with women,
Mm.
is that playfulness, that laughter, that joy, the singing, the dancing, allowing yourself to explore that creative flow. Those are all things that are so much a part of our essence, and tend to be shut down when those are the pieces that really bring life to everything that we do. Even if we, bring play to work,
Yeah.
you have a list of things to do, and you get stressed out about all these things you have to do. But if you come from a place of playfulness and joy, um, even coming up with like silly characters in order to like explore, like, for example, I hate doing my finances in my accounting.
I
Like, it drives
understand.
me
Yeah.
crazy. I don't, having to stay focused on that, and it's just totally dejuices me. But I pump myself up with it. First of all, I listen to music about money and like dance around, and then like I'll put on fake glasses and put like pretend that I'm like this like financial wizard,
I have
and then
seen
I
some of your videos where you dressed up in crazy ways. Let's put it that way. There was one where you were in a bathtub saying that you were the guru and you were wearing a giant beard and glasses.
yeah, this is true. So I do this on a regular basis with my own psyche so that I can like get stuff done.
Yeah. But yeah, it's true. I mean, it helps you kind of shift because we often have a really rigid definition of who we are. I am not a numbers person. I am a numbers person. I'm playful. I'm serious. And sometimes it's so debilitating to be locked in that little corridor that we need kind of tools or props or toys just to help us move out, whether it's to do, accountancy, or maybe it's to be creative. Because I find working with teenagers, up to, I don't know if you found the same thing, but up to maybe 10, 11, 12, they're still kids.